Right now, at the bottom of the world, there's a ship deliberately ramming itself into a frozen ocean. 13,500 tons of steel, charging at a wall of ice, riding its bow up onto the surface until its own weight cracks the frozen sea apart, then reversing, backing up, and slamming in again. Inside, around 150 people brace for each impact. When the ship hits, everything stops. You can't watch television. You can't read. You just hold on while the hull shudders and grinds, and then it goes quiet. The ship backs down and you wait for the next hit. They'll do this for hours, sometimes for a week straight. And here's the part that should make your palms sweat. This ship is 50 years old. It has a history of fires and engine failures. And if it ever gets stuck out there, truly stuck, frozen into the ice at the bottom of the planet, there is not a single ship in the entire United States fleet capable of coming to save it. This is the Polar Star, America's only heavy icebreaker, and the crew who ride it spend months at a time sealed in polar ice. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you what that life is actually like. The violence of breaking ice for a living, the strange rituals that keep a crew sane on a frozen ocean, the 50-year-old machine they hold together with their bare hands, and the rescue this ship pulled off on its own birthday that proves exactly why, for better or worse, America still can't live without it. Start with the mission, because everything flows from it. Every November, the Polar Star leaves Seattle and sails more than 20,000 miles to Antarctica for something called Operation Deep Freeze. The job sounds simple. Smash a channel through the frozen Ross Sea, some years 20 or 30 miles of solid ice, so that a fuel tanker and a cargo ship can reach McMurdo Station, the hub of America's science program on the frozen continent. But there's no redundancy in it. If the icebreaker fails, the ships don't get through. And if the ships don't get through, the fuel doesn't arrive, and the United States effectively has to start shutting down its science mission in Antarctica. One former captain put it in bigger terms. The research down there, ice cores holding data 1,000,000 years old, might just help save mankind. Which means, in a very real sense, 150 Coast Guard men and women in one elderly ship are the single thread holding all of it up. Now, the machine itself, because the ship is the strangest part of this story. The Polar Star doesn't cut ice, it climbs it. The bow is curved so that when the ship drives at the frozen sea, the hull rides up on top, and 13,500 tons of steel simply crush it from above. The plating at the bow is nearly 2 inches thick, made from special steel that stays strong in extreme cold. Under the deck, there's a hybrid heart, diesel-electric engines for cruising, and 3 aviation-grade gas turbines, jet engines essentially, that together unleash 75,000 horsepower for the ice. Driving steadily, she'll break 6 feet of ice at 3 knots without stopping. And when the ice piles into ridges 21 feet thick, the crew shifts to the brutal rhythm they call backing and ramming, reverse, charge, slam, reverse, charge, slam. 50 years after her commissioning, she is still, by the Coast Guard's own account, the most powerful non-nuclear icebreaker on Earth. But a hull shaped to climb ice pays for it everywhere else, and this is where the surviving starts. A rounded icebreaker bottom is a terrible shape for the open ocean, and the crossing to Antarctica is thousands of miles of it. The crews call these ships polar rollers, and they mean it. The rolling gets so violent that one captain admitted he often slept on the deck of his own cabin because it was easier than being thrown out of his rack. His seasickness remedy passed to the crew like folklore. 1 earplug in 1 ear. Doesn't matter which. He swore by it. Then, after weeks of rolling, the ship enters the ice and trades one misery for another. The smooth, sickening sway is replaced by the shuddering violence of the ram day after day, a full break into McMurdo sometimes taking a week, months from home, No ports, no rescue on call, just the ship, the ice, and each other. And the ship itself is fighting them. The Polar Star is 5 decades old, decades past the service life she was designed for, and the crew are less like sailors than paramedics for a machine that keeps trying to die. One season, a shaft seal failed and seawater sprayed into the engine room at 20 gallons a minute. Another time, one of the 3 great turbines shut down mid-mission because the engine and the ship's ancient electrical system stopped understanding each other. Coast Guard divers have gone under the Antarctic ice, under it, to repair the ship from outside while she sat in the frozen sea. Her sister ship, the Polar Sea, wasn't so lucky. Catastrophic engine failure in 2010, sidelined permanently, cannibalized for parts. Since then, the crews of the Polar Star have kept the last one alive by ingenuity, spare parts, and sheer stubbornness, because there is no spare. It isn't all dread, though. Somewhere in the middle of the deployment comes the ritual every crew member waits for: Ice Liberty. The ship stops, parks itself in the frozen Ross Sea, and the crew climbs down onto the ice itself, walking, playing, taking photos on the skin of a frozen ocean at the bottom of the world, with their red-hulled ship towering behind them like a building. It is the strangest shore leave in the U.S. military. Liberty on a surface that is technically the sea. Moments like that, and port calls in Honolulu and Sydney bracketing the ice, are the pressure valves that make 5 months of rolling, ramming, and repairs survivable. Then, this past January, came the night that turned the whole story into legend. January 17th, 2026, the Polar Star's 50th birthday to the exact day. She was on station near McMurdo when a distress call came in on a Friday night. A luxury cruise ship, the Scenic Eclipse II, ice-rated hull, built to carry up to 200 passengers, had pushed too deep and become beset, stuck fast in pack ice about 8 nautical miles from McMurdo Sound, frozen into the ocean, unable to move. So the 50-year-old ship went and got them. The Polar Star drove in, broke the modern cruise ship out of the ice, and escorted it to safety. A machine commissioned in 1976, rescuing a vessel built in this decade, on the anniversary of the day she first entered service. Days later, she was back on the job, escorting the largest fuel tanker ever to reach McMurdo Station through the Ross Sea. Her captain summed up half a century in one line: she's an old ship, but she's a good ship. Which brings us to the part nobody likes to say out loud. That cruise ship was lucky the Polar Star existed, because if the roles were reversed, no one is coming. The Coast Guard itself has admitted that if a catastrophic failure struck this ship in the Antarctic ice, the United States has no self-rescue capability. None. And the wider picture is worse. America operates exactly 3 polar icebreakers. Russia operates more than 40, several of them nuclear-powered. The replacement program has become a cautionary tale. The first new heavy icebreaker was promised for 2024. It is now expected no earlier than 2030, and the price has ballooned from under $1 billion to nearly $2.5 billion. The stopgaps are real. A converted commercial ship called the Storis, commissioned in 2025, and a deal with Finland to help build up to 11 new medium icebreakers. But until that steel exists, the math stays the same. One 50-year-old heavy icebreaker, held together by its crew, standing between America and being locked out of the poles. So how do icebreaker crews survive months frozen in polar ice? By sleeping on the deck when the rolling gets too violent. By bracing for the ram hour after hour until the shudder feels like weather. By diving under the Antarctic ice to fix a 50-year-old machine because the mission fails without her. And once a season, by climbing down onto the frozen sea itself and standing on the ocean, 150 people and one old red ship, alone at the bottom of the world, doing a job no other American vessel can do. She's an old ship, but she's a good ship, and for now, she's the only one. If this is the hidden world at sea you keep coming back for, stick around. There's plenty more where this came from.